Just Go With It is a podcast hosted by two millennials who swear. And also, it's about horror films, so listener discretion is advised. We will put specific content warnings in the show notes. Boo!
Hello, and welcome to Just Go With It, a podcast where we talk about how society influences our favorite and sometimes least favorite horror movies. And today we're talking about It. Again. But this time, the remake. And I'm Nikki, by the way.
And I'm Kate.
I didn't forget to introduce myself.
No, you got it. Spot on.
Absolutely nailed it. But yeah, we're talking about It. Made in, 2017? I think?
Yes.
Yeah. So we already talked about the original, which has a place in my heart. Now we're going to talk about this bad boy.
This one.
This one.
So many thoughts.
I have many thoughts. Before we get into our thoughts, do you want to hear the very, very few facts? Okay, real quick. I said this like I was accusing you, but last time I did these fun facts. Okay, I said that the director of It Follows, I was like, yeah, I don't think he's really done other stuff than that. But then I talked about how the guy who made the music for It Follows made the music for a movie called Under the Silver Lake. Yeah, it turns out if I had just done a little tiny bit more research, the guy who directed It Follows also directed Under the Silver Lake.
Incredible.
Yeah, so I watched over the weekend. It's very good, very weird. But yeah, so basically, that was my way of saying, don't listen to all of my facts that well. I don't do a lot of research, clearly.
It's all about balance.
It's all about balance. You do the research, I give a tiny bit of facts, and here we go. Okay, so this one was directed by Andy Muschietti. I hope I'm saying that right. He also directed a movie called Mama. Do you know this? It's a horror movie.
Yes.
I've never seen it. But it was based on a short film that he also wrote. And apparently, Guillermo del Toro loved it so much that he produced the feature film. So, good for this guy. Love that. The music was by Benjamin Wallfish, and he's done a ton of stuff. The ones I wrote down was Blade Runner 2049, Shazam, The Invisible Man, Hidden Figures, and Cure for Wellness. And I believe I don't know if he won, but he definitely was up for like a BAFTA for Hidden Figures. BAFTA? Is that what it's called?
I don't know. I had a moment of panic where it's like, in Misfits, no. In Doctor Who, which is very different from Misfits, they talk about, like, youth that have, like, acronym here. And I thought it was BAFTA, but it's not. It's, like, youth that have gotten in trouble with the law, and there's, like, an acronym for that. It's not BAFTA.
Okay, I
don't remember what it is.
I think BAFTA is an award. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. But I believe he either won or was up for a few awards for his music. So, yeah, very good music. Apparently he had a way bigger orchestra for It Part 2, because he did the music for that one as well. And I guess, yeah, they had like a bigger orchestra, and he said it was a little more intense. And I was like, cool. So, interesting stuff. And then this is my favorite fact, because do you remember the budget for the original that I told you?
12 million.
12 million. Guess how much this one was?
1 billion.
Whoa! Okay, listen, no.
I don't know how numbers work.
35 million.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so it was a lot. Like, it was a lot bigger.
I knew it wasn't a billion, okay? I knew that. I
knew it wasn't a billion. Just to be clear, I knew it wasn't a billion, okay?
Just so we're clear, I knew that.
I don't know, folks. I thought maybe she knew it, but we'll see. Yeah, so the budget was 35 million, which, like, is obvious. I mean, it's a huge film.
Wow.
And it made that money back probably within its, like, first 2 nights,
Holy
as
shit.
I recall. Yeah, because when I worked at a movie theater, it was our highest grossing film and highest attended film for, like, a really long time. And that also could be wrong, but it was one of our highest grossing films, as I recall, and, like, most attended. We had it for a really long time. So
I know when I was
popular.
doing research, I was, like, combing through fun facts, which they called trivia, but I feel like it's not. Anyway, this is a qualm I have with the way they call it. But one of the things was about, like, how it was one of the highest grossing horror films.
Yes.
And
yeah.
I don't remember, like, what all the criteria, like, highest grossing of this list or
Right.
of this year, but, like, it made that money back.
It made that money back fast. And I think it was because, like, you got a bunch of people who are nostalgic for the old one. You got a bunch of people who, like, haven't seen the old one, but probably love this one. And then obviously big fans that, like, just love the book. So they had a perfect storm of, like, making damn money. So, those are my facts. I feel like we don't need a recap, though, because it's the same movie.
See, you may not feel the need to, but I feel like I need to offer a recap because last time I messed up a little bit. So I would like another shot if that's okay with you.
Another shot of me telling you what it's about?
Me telling you because I aired.
Okay, you tell us. How about you tell
Yes.
us what it's about? Because no one needs to hear my horrible thoughts again.
I'm going to read someone else's words as I do.
Okay.
And this is from Rotten Tomatoes. And I
Okay.
just realized in this moment that I did not hide my bird clock. But we had 10 minutes until it sounds.
You know what? Just for that, I'm leaving it in, and they're all going to hear the bird clock.
Oh, God.
Let's all try to guess and go quiet for when it's going to happen. We'll
10
try
minutes
to...
from now.
10 minutes from now, we're all just going to... wait for it.
I am recording in the closet, though, so it's entirely possible that it'll be muted birds.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Well, then that'll just be nice. It'll sound like we're recording, like, in a meadow.
Oh, I mean, we are, obviously.
We are. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, what I meant was we are recording in a meadow.
Yes.
So, and the
Okay.
clock that we're talking about are real birds.
Yes.
Okay.
You're
Tell me
giving
all
away all
about
of our
the-
secrets, it's fine. Okay, so this is from Rotten Tomatoes. Seven young outcasts in Derry, Maine.
It's already going really well. You had such high hopes.
I think I'm just cursed.
You can do this. You know what? I believe in you.
That's
Okay.
actually a trope later. The power of belief. Anyway,
Oh my
it's like clap
God,
your
of
hands if
course
you
it
believe.
is.
We'll get to it.
We'll get to it. You'll see. Well, I believe.
7 young outcasts in Derry, Maine are about to face their worst nightmare, an ancient, shape-shifting evil that emerges from the sewer every 27 years to prey on the town's children. Banding together over the course of one horrifying summer, the friends must overcome their personal fears to battle the murderous, bloodthirsty clown known as Pennywise.
That was great. You absolutely
you.
nailed it.
Yeah, and I got that in one take. We're gonna
One
edit out
take.
all the mistakes now.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
No. You know
There
my
was
flaws.
It was only a teeny tiny mistake. It wasn't even that bad. It's fine. Cool.
No, we're keeping
Okay.
it all in.
So I'm excited for this because we had so many weird facts about the original that I feel like this one's going to be just as wild because it's so different. Okay, so let's go to Kate's Nerd Corner. Take us away, Kate.
Okay, so researching this was fun, meaning that it went a lot of different directions, and I was staring at my laptop saying, how do I pull these together? So, let's start with a quick recap. Last
Yes.
week we talked about moral panics in general, and stranger danger in particular.
Mm-hmm.
This week, I want to talk about another panic. Clown panic.
Ooh,
So-
yay, I knew it.
The questions I will consider. What is it? When and where have clown panics occurred? Why might they spring up? And finally, how does this connect to it? So starting off, creepy clown sightings are nothing new, and they're not actually rare. But it doesn't always
Which is
become a
wild.
wave of panic like it did in 2016. The so-called Great Clown Panic of 2016.
I
started-
wish that this was like fake, but it's so not.
Oh no, it's real.
Like,
Yeah, this is
Clown
one of those
Panic.
moments. What is it? It's the trope reality is unbelievable.
funny to
Yep,
me.
this is one of those moments.
The fact that the world went through a time when clowns just kind of took over.
It's been like a struggle for the past decade.
Like, listen, I know people are genuinely scared of clowns. I get it. They're scary. But, like, the fact that the world was just gripped by clowns for, like, way too long. I'm genuinely crying. I know it sounds like I'm hamming this up, but this is the funniest thing to me. And I was hoping you'd bring it up. Okay. I want to hear about it. Tell me.
You're gonna love this shit. Okay.
I'm so excited.
So, the so-called Great Clown Panic of 2016 started with a short horror film marketing stunt. Adam Krause of Wisconsin was creating a 16-minute short horror film called Gags, featuring a creepy clown named Gags. So an actor dressed up in a creepy clown costume stood on street corners at night holding some black balloons. Krause took pictures and posted grainy versions online.
He thought that it would be a continuing project and that it would take time to get traction. Oh, how mistaken he was. These photos went viral. NPR, the New York Times, USA Today, and more news outlets covered the story of a mystery clown causing fear in Wisconsin. Other countries picked it up too. He planned to keep the marketing campaign going longer, but someone on the project let the secret out, so he did interviews about it. That should have wrapped it all up, right? Creepy clown mystery solved.
No.
Au contraire. Instead, this began a wave of reported clown sightings.
I can't.
There were generally two forms of these reports. Clowns posing a threat to children, and clowns being in places where clowns generally aren't.
Yeah, anywhere. Like,
just anywhere. Anywhere a clown is where clowns generally aren't.
just, I can't. We were I remember it. Oh my god.
I do too. Yeah. So over a period of months, there were reports of clowns in over 29 states.
Oh my god.
Ohio included.
Oh my god.
So there were a lot of different cases, but I'm just going to mention a few. So school children said they saw clowns at the edge of wooded areas whispering and making weird noises. In another state, there was a report of a clown menacing children at a bus stop.
Oh
there was also a clown bomb threat at a school in New York.
Wait. Was the clown leaving the bomb, or was the bomb like made of clown? I know it's a dumb question, but listen, in the clown panic, anything can happen.
Clowns are known to explode if they get too anxious.
Yeah, was that it? Like, the clown was like, I'm gonna explode? Or was it just like, I'm gonna leave a bomb? Like, what?
Let's assume the clown was not the bomb. It was a clown placing a bomb.
We can assume, but...
we can assume, but we'll never know the truth.
But we'll never know. Okay, cool. That's, wild.
In none of these cases was actual evidence of clowns found. Some schools banned clown costumes that year. Police departments were trying to remind the public that there was no evidence of dangerous clowns on the loose, and a guy in Kentucky was arrested for wearing a clown costume and mask in public. There was also, I think it was at Penn State University, there was a mob of 500 students that went out at night looking for clowns.
They went clown hunting. Oh my god, I remember that. I remember when this, like, mob was just like, we're gonna get those clowns. And everyone was like, okay.
Good for you. You got this. And at this point, it's important to say, this wasn't the first time we'd seen a clown panic in the U.S. There was a phantom clown panic in 1981 that started in Massachusetts and spread to other cities and states. There have been phantom clown scares over the years since then. And folks that have studied this pointed out that while creepy clown sightings are not uncommon, they don't turn into full-blown panics unless there's also heightened social anxiety and unrest at the time.
Right.
And what cultural anxiety was going full tilt in 1981?
Oh, no.
Stranger danger.
Stranger danger! I knew it. I was like, it's partnered with it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
So these were kind of like twinned and co-occurring, but also like contributing to each other. So we've looked briefly at two clown panics in the U.S., 1981, 2016. We know that moral panics find fertile ground in anxious society.
Yeah.
But what is it about clowns that makes them an outlet for this fear? There are a lot of theories out there. The two that I read about concern the uncanny valley and the ambiguity and unpredictability of clowns. So a quick clarification. I've heard people say, clowns used to be so wholesome, like when did they become scary? That's not necessarily true. In a Vox article, Aja Romano points out that clowns have always had a duality to their nature. And here's a direct quote. I wanted to quote it because I cannot rephrase this in a way that is as poignant as they said it.
Right.
So the clown's evil side has always been central to its nature. The trope began as part of more traditional trickster archetypes across the world, like the court jester, the fool, and the harlequin. The clown plays the role of the ironic entertainer whose duality reflects the intrinsic darkness and lightness of humanity itself. By playing off this duality through satire, the clown has historically served as a tool of fierce social and political subversion. We crave the clown's fun, whimsical side, but the clown's dark side often reveals barbaric truths about human nature.
I wouldn't say I crave the clowns.
I wouldn't say I crave clowns.
But yeah, that... Oh my god.
So there is a long history of clowns in popular culture, and that's a worthy area of analysis. Go do that if you want to. We don't have the time for that.
We don't have time for so many clowns.
So many clowns. So going back to why we can find, why we find clowns scary. The uncanny valley is one of the theories, and it's not a
Mhm.
scientific theory. It's an aesthetics theory posed by Masahiro Mori, who was a
Mhm.
professor at the Tokyo Institute of Technology at the time. He observed that robots are more appealing to us as they become more human-like, but only to a point. At that crucial point, when they're that familiar, we no longer find them appealing. We find them strange and tend to feel uneasy, to put it lightly. So the uncanny valley maps that point where the resemblance becomes unsettling. But a lot of people have pointed out that clowns aren't really trying to appear lifelike. They're instead exaggerations and distortions of humanness. So
Mhm.
some folks say that the uncanny valley theory doesn't really cover it all. What is it then? An article by Erika Engelhaupt. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It sounds like a German name, and I don't speak German. Anyway, it's an article in the National Geographic.
There we go.
The National Geographic.
The National Geographic.
So in this article, Engelhaupt considers the research done by social psychologist Frank McAndrew, who has 2 first names. I know McAndrew's not a first name, but like that's
It's like
they
Frank
keep taking all the
McAndrew.
names. Right?
A lot of men with these, multiple first names. We
I'm
get
mad about it. I'm gonna stay mad about it. So anyway, social psychologist Frank McAndrew did research on creepiness. He had a survey that studied over 1,300 people on physical traits and behaviors that they identified as creepy. The most common factor in finding something creepy was unpredictability. And the following is a direct quote from the article. According to McAndrew, what really makes clowns creepy is that they are ambiguous characters in so many ways. If a person is willing to flout the conventions of society by dressing and acting as they do, what other rules might they be willing to break? It is only when we are confronted with uncertainty about a threat that we get the chills. It would be considered rude and strange to run away in the middle of a conversation with someone who's sending out a creepy vibe but is actually harmless. At the same time, it could be perilous to ignore your intuition and engage with that individual if he is in fact a threat. The ambivalence leaves you frozen in place, wallowing in discomfort. So they talk about how that uncertainty and ambiguity places you in like a freeze mode where you don't know how to react and you're just waiting for more information.
That is spooky.
A little bit. So now we have some ideas about why clowns can be seen as creepy. What about the use of clowns in horror? I was listening to this podcast actually a few years ago. I think it came out in 2019. I'm bad at time, but it's called American Hysteria.
Mm-hmm.
Host Chelsea Weber-Smith posits that horror can operate as a pressure valve of sorts. So in the episode entitled Phantom Clowns, she said, "In times of high cultural stress, horror movies often soar in popularity. They help us vent feelings of anxiety and fear, of the scariness and creepiness of the real world in a controlled way. We can examine our fear while knowing we're not in real danger." So
interesting. All right.
Yeah, and that's in her episode about Phantom Clowns.
Yeah.
It's a really good episode. I've listened to it like 3 times. So the anxiety and fear in 1981 that likely contributed to the rise of the Phantom Clown panic was the concurrent and interrelated Stranger Danger Mall panic. But what about 2016? It was an election year. Don't know if people recognize that.
No, you're right.
And it was, some could say it was contentious. And some folks, like Weber-Smith, have pointed out that Donald Trump is often said to be clownish in appearance and behavior.
He sure
His
is.
orange spray tan, his hair, his oversized suits. So we have a nation at a pivotal point politically and socially, a clownish figure that routinely flouts social convention and decency rising to the top, and rising tensions between and among parties. Introduce a clown-centric viral marketing stunt, and you have the spark of a clown panic. To bring this all back to it, as we know, this is an adaptation of a novel written in the 80s. And this adaptation was in pre-production in, I don't know how to say years. I was about to say 2009.
I wouldn't have even questioned it. Sounds right.
That's right. Checks out.
Yeah.
It was in pre-production back in 2009. It actually went through 3 directors. Which I find really interesting. Yeah. So I can get into this later. But one of the disagreements with one of the directors was that he wanted it to be NC-17 instead of R.
Whoa.
Yeah. And he was like, we wanted to make different movies. That's okay. I'm just going to leave the project. And that's when the actual guy came on.
Yeah. Andy Muschietti.
Thank you. I was like, name with a lot of consonants.
I know. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I'm also very bad at names, but Andy Muschietti, I think that's somewhat correct.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that the clown panic of 2016 influenced the creation of It Chapter 1, because the timing does not line up.
Right.
The audience that saw this movie shared the recent memory of a nationwide clown panic.
It's true.
And we're all bonded through that trauma, are we not?
Oh boy. Like, I remember when all of it happened, and I wasn't, like, scared, because I was like, okay, no. But there's that part of you that's just like, what if? Like, like, what if clowns just fucking took over? Like, right?
I remember that happening, and, like, my reaction to it all was, of course. Of fucking course,
Right?
there's killer
Like,
clowns now.
it was just one of those years where you're just like, fine. Like, nothing matters. Of course there's clowns.
To quote John Mulaney, this might as well happen.
And it was true. I think everyone was just so defeated at that point that they were like, oh, okay, sure. So yeah, this movie definitely was just like everybody being like, oh, I remember that.
So that's my nerd corner.
God, that was a good one. Thank
you.
The clown panic always fucking kills me. I can't.
I think I didn't suppress this memory because it wasn't, like, so immensely painful to me, by any means, but, like, it just didn't rank in, like, the things that I remember from 2016. And so then rereading this, I was like, oh my god, it did happen.
It's one of those things that, like, it wasn't necessarily that big a deal because it really wasn't real.
Yeah.
But it also, like, when you do look back on it and you finally remember, you're like, what the fuck? What the fuck was going on in 2016 that people were like, I'm gonna dress as a clown. I'm gonna go outside. Why?
And so much of it wasn't even like, I'm gonna scare my neighbors. I mean, there were definitely, like, parts where people were dressing as clowns to scare people, but most of it was people calling in clown threats. And there were a lot of people that get charged for filing false police reports.
Oh my god.
I know.
Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely loved it, though. As in, like, loved it as in, it's truly a time you can't forget. Until you do forget, and then you remember, and it's all, you get to do it all over again, you know?
Remember when we relived the clown panic of 2016?
I cannot wait to someday I'll never have kids, but maybe I'll tell all my cats. I'm like, you know what? Back in 2016, clowns really took over, y'all. The cats are gonna be like, I don't care.
Yeah. Miso and Noodle are like, but Mom, we're no.
My two cats, yeah, they already hate me. They don't want to hear about my clown stuff too. Okay, so now we can talk about horror, which I'm excited. Mostly because this one was so different from the original, which, as you know, just holds like a special place in my heart because I love it. It's one of the first horror movies I ever saw. So them seeing this one, it's very different. So I don't know how I feel about it yet. You know, like, I saw it when it first came out, and I still just don't know where it sits in my heart. Like, is it good? Is it bad? I just don't really know.
This was my third time seeing it, and I saw it for the first time when it came out, and I saw it in theaters, and so I know, like, I remember sitting next to my friend in the theater, and, like, she and I both, like, grabbing each other and screaming at a jump scare, but I also remember us being like,
Yeah, I mean, it's...
and, yeah.
That's what it does, and it's so strange. I saw it in theaters when it first came out, because, obviously, it was one of my favorite movies. I was really excited, and I worked at the movie theater at this time, so I got free movies, so I was kind of like, hell yeah, like, why wouldn't I check this out? So I went and I watched it, and I did like it. I was like, this is really good. And then I saw it again in theaters because I had like a date and he really wanted to see it. And I was like, all right, yeah, like, we can go see it. Again, free movie. So I was like, whatever, we can do what we want. And even the second time, I remember being like, yeah, this is a really good movie. And then, like, working in the projection booth, I had to, like, see it through the window constantly. And you start to, like, watch it again and again and again until you're like, I don't know. So I have, like, a warped view of it a little bit. But I know you liked it, right? Like, you still like it. Okay.
Yeah, I still enjoy it. I definitely have, like, my qualms with it, which I'll get into it. I, like, listed them in my notes under qualms. It's like, I have these issues, and I've listed them alphabetically. They're not alphabetical.
Oh my god. I was about to be like, oh my god, Kate.
No.
One of the first things I did notice, too, is that this was a lot different. One, it's set in the 80s.
Yes.
I think, instead of, 50s, 60s, or 1960?
Yeah, so it's like,
I believe
50s and 80s, and this one was 80s and 2010s.
Yeah, so this one was, different in that way. But also, remember in original, it had those really intense primary colors.
Yeah.
And this one was like really opposite, where everything felt really muted, even Pennywise. His red looked faded, like everything. And I think that's on purpose, obviously, to make him look old. And like we talked about this a little bit about how his costume is meant to reflect like his timelessness, which I also noted in the color is similar. He looks faded. He looks gross.
Yeah. His makeup is cracked and it's kind of like diluted is not like the exact thing, but like it is
not as
saturated.
You know? Yeah, like he's definitely like he's not bright like the original, where he's meant to be like an oversaturated pop of color. And this guy, I mean, in this guy, Pennywise, this clown in this one is so muted, and it was so interesting. And I have qualms about the costume, not necessarily for what it was supposed to represent, because I love that. I loved the fact that the costume designer wanted pieces from different eras to reflect how he was like ageless and like basically forever. Like he had been around forever, so much so that his costume like reflected that. It just, I don't know. I just like had qualms with it being a little too fitted on him, and like, being like the ruffles were a little too, I don't know. It took away the horror for me in a way.
Okay.
I think because I was just so, I don't know. It was just so fitted to this man that I was just like, I don't know. Like, and in the other one, when, Tim Curry is in it, he's got this like shapeless kind of like, for lack of a better word, a onesie basically. So it kind of gave him more of a spooky vibe for me.
Okay.
But that's just for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it felt more classic clown, and this felt more like you were being haunted by a Victorian painting.
Yes. Exactly, that is the vibe.
Yeah, and I totally understand that that's like a vibe, and I can understand why people would be scared of that. But for me, it took it away a little bit just because I saw the ruffles, and I was like, look at this dandy man. Like, I was like, this sweet little dandy man is coming to get me.
Hello, dainty sir.
Yeah, so that part took it away from me a little bit, but I didn't dislike it. But I wanted to mention it before I forgot.
Yeah, this is gonna sound very minor and like a weird nitpicky thing to pick up, but definitely in the scene where he appears to Eddie, I didn't clock if it was consistent throughout the movie, but his pom-poms on the front of his outfit are off-center, and to me that reflected his instability. And like the mercurial nature of Pennywise, and how he's unpredictable, and how there's just this
scary.
Yeah, and so it's like, you know that like when a character in a movie is like unhinged, their hair's messed up.
Right, yeah.
It was like that, where it's
So
like
it was
his
like that,
pom-poms aren't straight.
Classic clown. They're weird pom-poms.
And you just know that like they are so intentional with setting things on movies.
Yeah, so it's hard to say that wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I didn't notice that, but that's interesting.
Because it gives like this air of disheveled and intentionally mussed, where it's like, you don't know what he's gonna do. He's wild.
And you don't. He's weird.
No.
And that's the thing. Like, the person who designed the costumes, I did love it. I thought that whoever did it did a really, really good job. And I did like it. Like, it wasn't scary to me necessarily, but I appreciated everything that went into it. The thought and like what it meant. Amazing. It just, I'm also a costume nerd though at the same time, and I studied costume history for a while, so I get a little like nitpicky about it to the point where I think I ruin it for myself, and that's probably what I did here, because honestly, it was a super cool costume. I just saw his little Victorian ruff and his like ruffles, and I was like, no, not for me.
No thanks.
Yeah, okay, and it also doesn't help. I'm gonna admit something now. The guy who played the clown, do you know his name? Do you remember?
Skarsgård.
Yeah, I think he's very attractive.
Oh, yes. It was very confusing to watch this movie and be like, I am wildly attracted to Bill Skarsgård. Not as Pennywise. As Pennywise?
Here's the problem. Yeah, I was like, no, that clown's not hot. And then I was like, clown's a little hot. Like, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. That clown was hot. Okay? I'm not saying all the time, and I'm not saying that I approve of his eating of children. I'm just saying It was a hot clown. So yes, it was confusing.
I just hit my head because I laughed too hard.
And I like didn't want to say anything, but then I was like, you know what? This is
a safe space.
Thank you. This has morphed my view of this movie so much that I have to bring it up to the point where every time I saw him, I was just like, he's so good looking. Instead of being frightened.
I am just very attracted to Bill Skarsgård's kindness.
Yeah,
in like all of the interviews and like all of the behind the scenes stuff, they talk about like how kind he was to the child actors and how like he would check in with them regularly and be like, hey, are you okay? And like they had kept him separate from them for a while so that when they did scenes with him, they were actually shocked, not in like the scarring way, but like the surprised way.
Right.
And like the kid that played Eddie, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, he was great.
Right.
But there's a scene where Pennywise is like choking him and screaming in his face, and Eddie's crying and screaming. And then as soon as the camera's cut, Bill Skarsgård is like, "Hey, are you okay?" And the Jack Grazer's like, "Oh, dude, I'm fine. I love what you're doing with the character." And it was just like every time I read these things about how kind Skarsgård is to everyone in the cast.
What a sweetheart!
I know, and it's like I have like this belief that we cannot like. I don't know. This is only true for me. But I cannot, have real true feelings for someone that I don't personally know. And so it's like, I admire the shit out of Bill Skarsgård. I cannot say I'm in love with Bill Skarsgård. I cannot say that.
Listen, I'm not going to come out and just say I'm in love with Bill Skarsgård. I will say, though, he's very attractive. He was a hot clown. Yes. And he seems like a very kind person. So for that, and this is also not taking away from his performance in any way because he was extremely good. Like, he's very talented. That creepy face that he makes with his mouth, that's real. He just does that.
I know.
His little lip thing. I know you guys can't see us, but we're both trying to do it. We're both like, his little lip thing. But yeah, he's very talented. I've seen him in, obviously, a ton of other things, and he's really good. So, like, me not being afraid of him in this has nothing to do with his performance. He was extremely good.
Oh, yeah.
I just like him a lot already and saw this and was like, oh no, he's a good looking clown.
I'm ruined.
I truly ruined.
When you mentioned the smile, it reminded me of like one of these trivia things because I spent like an hour reading facts about this movie. So the fake teeth that he wears in some scenes made him drool excessively, and so like they decided to just keep it.
Yeah,
because
I wrote that down.
Drooling lends like this animalisticness.
Yes, I wrote the drool exclamation point because it was such a cool thing, I thought, like, that they added. And not necessarily added, clearly, because I just found out it's real nasty.
It's not like a drool affect in post. It was like, no. His teeth
Bill
made
was
him
like,
drool a
it's
lot.
fine, I'll just do this.
This is fine.
Oh my god, I'm looking at my notes now that I haven't looked at since I watched it, and I wrote, Pennywise is hot. Ew, the drool. So I'm having a lot of emotions during this movie.
Clearly, some complex feelings have arisen.
Having a lot of complex feelings, but here's the things that I did write down. I did like that they had that same piano scene, sort of. Did you notice that was still in this one from the first one? I love that, just because it was like this tiny little like homage of like, oh yes, someone was playing the piano when Georgie died in the first one, still playing the piano in this one. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And also, they got us really attached to Georgie, like, right away. A lot more than the original. In the original, the scenes with Georgie feel very, like, you're really supposed to focus on Bill, I feel like. It almost was like, okay, yeah, like, Georgie's cute and all, but this is about Bill, really. Whereas when Georgie in this one, I was like already just like, oh, look at this little cutie, like, which I know is on purpose. Yeah. He was so sweet. I mean, he had longer scenes, I feel like, as well. And then when he dies, you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
They really just got you attached. And they also exploited your, like, feelings of watching him and Bill. Like, Bill and his love and is so cute in this one that they totally exploit that. And they're like, isn't that adorable? Now watch us rip this kid's arm off.
And Georgie's like, oh, Bill's gonna kill me. And you're like, no, Pennywise is.
Right? You're like, oh, well, don't even worry, bud. And that's also the sad thing is they show Bill being like, oh, I'm just sick, it's okay, but like I still love you, be careful, you know. And then when he says like Bill's gonna kill me, you're like, oh, he never would, he loves you. And then it makes it worse.
Yep.
Because you're like, oh no.
I had a moment when I was watching this week where I was like, if I stop it now, Georgie doesn't die. And I was like,
if I just stop watching, Georgie just had a great time with his boat. And that's it, folks. All right. So welcome. Thank you so much for also
revisionist history episode of Just Cool With It.
We're actually going to stop recording and just hang out now if you guys want to chat.
Yep.
Also what it did though is it made us hate Pennywise sooner.
Yeah.
I think because I mean in the first one you're a little less attached to Georgie, so you're not, and obviously because it was made for TV you get less of a gruesome death for Georgie. So I feel like at that point you know that he's scary, but you're kind of like, we'll still see what he's got going on. In this one, right from the beginning, you're like, oh, Pennywise, that was fucked up.
Yeah.
So it really just is like a terror right from the beginning, which is interesting, different than the other one.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like in the first one, Pennywise isn't like taunting him. He's just trying to lure him. In this one, he's straight up taunting Georgie. Yeah. And like trying to guilt him and make him feel bad and unsafe.
Yes. In the first one, he's a little less, like, not mean, but yeah, like he's really just like talking to Georgie like they're pals, you know? And he's just like, come on, it's okay. And in this one, he's kind of a dick. But Georgie's a kid. He doesn't really know, you know? You can tell he picks up on it, though.
He does, yeah.
You can tell that he picks up and he's just like, I'm not so sure about this clown in the sewer. And even when he's inching to grab the boat, he's still very hesitant, and you can tell he's trying to keep his distance, and it really makes that scene so much longer and so much worse.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it was so scary. Yeah. Poor Georgie, man.
Sorry. So one of the things that I wrote, I'm like looking through my notes that I just took like while I was watching, and I later refined them. But straight off the dome, this is what I wrote. 2017 looked at 1990 and said, fuck you, fuck this, fuck that, have some blood. And by that I mean, there's a shit ton of blood, and they say fuck literally over 60 times.
Oh my god. You're right. They literally took everything that the first one couldn't do, and they were like, oh, we're gonna do it a lot. Which is so funny. Because yeah, in this one, I also wrote that it made the kids a little more believable in this one. Because, like, in the first one, they're very dramatic, like, the kids. Yeah, they're very, like, I mean, they're, like, 1950s, you know, like, oh, geez, I love you, Bill. Like, you know, they had this kind of air about them. Oh, golly gee. Yeah, like, they had a lot of times where, like, the kids would, like, dramatically look off screen and be like, oh, no, and stuff like that. In this one, they genuinely feel like kids who are just like, I finally realize that I can say fuck and I'm gonna say it a lot, you know? Because you like when you're a kid and you finally realize no one can yell at you for saying fuck, and you're like, oh, this is it, this is my new vocabulary. And that's so what it felt like, and it was so funny.
Exactly.
But that is one of the things that took it away from me, is like the kids were so funny in this that it wasn't that scary.
I can definitely see that perspective. I think for me, it was like the humor balanced out the moments of terror where it's like, oh, we're just laughing with friends. And then it's like, no, someone just died being stabbed in the neck with like, what are they called? It's not a safety razor.
A safety razor? Not an X-Acto knife, is it?
It's a switchblade.
Switchblade.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and you're totally right, too, because it was a nice balance. I think for me, it was just hard to focus because I was like, these kids are really funny. But I can understand also how it could balance it out. Because there are a few parts in this that still terrified me. That little kid in the library with the eggs in his arms.
Oh my god.
I fucking hate that. He's dropping his little eggs and I'm like, oh no, I know he doesn't have a head. Oh, it was so gross.
Oh my god, that's my, like,
Isn't that creepy?
Oh my god, like, when they're in the basement and Pennywise is running at Bill, and he, like...
Yeah! He does that little, shoulders like, his shoulders get really quick. Medium. I know, I'm like, I know you guys can't see us, but we're both miming running right now. Because it's so weird.
If there are any Critical Role fans out there, there's a really good example of this in like definitely the first half of campaign 2, where they're like in this barren landscape and they come across like the Forgotten or the Forsworn or something, and Matt scares the shit out of everyone, mostly Travis. And it's because he does that like jerky run after like this prolonged groan.
Scary.
It is
like...
wild. I'll link it in the show notes. I'll link this in the show notes.
Check it out, guys, because I haven't seen it. I'm excited. There were a few parts where I feel like, and this is where, okay, and also someone corrected me and they were totally right. I was saying special effects and practical effects. It is practical effects and visual effects. So I think, and I could be wrong again, hopefully this person will correct me, but I believe that my definition is correct, but the wording was wrong. So this one obviously was just so heavy on the visual effects that for me, that's another thing that took away, because I missed those practical effects. And I feel like because they had such a big budget and they wanted to make this like really cool, they kind of did everything they could. They were like, we're going to make this wild. And for me, I was like, oh, it's almost too much. But there were some parts like that creepy child with the eggs that was amazing. Chef's kiss to you guys. Loved that. But then there's that part where Pennywise is in the fridge in the house and his comes out and I'm like, all right. Like,
yeah.
I remember watching it and being like, I know that he's weird, but like he twists and stuff. And I'm like, I wish that it had been a little more practical effects, less visual, but it's still really liked it.
To me, that moment of like, I was actually thinking about the fridge, like contortionist scene. And
Yeah.
I think that Skarsgård actually did part of that, but they like CGI'd the body on and kept his head. And so I was like, so basically he didn't do it. They just CGI'd the body in there. And so I feel like I read somewhere where they said like, oh yeah, you worked with a contortionist, but at the end, like, to me, it was this over the topness, which is intentional, but to me the scarier thing is like it looks slightly too small for him to fit.
Yeah.
You know, where it's not like, oh, this is just impossible and he's like this uncanny wild thing. To me, the scarier thing is this is almost plausible, but slightly too impossible. I think that's, you know?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think that's what it is for me. I think it's that it's like there's less of a probability. Like in the first one, I feel like the things that they're scared of and the way that Pennywise acts, he could almost be like a real person in a way, but he just does things that aren't quite right. And in this one, it starts off that way, and then he just instantly becomes like completely impossible, which he is, and I know that, but I don't know. I think it was just so over the top, like him coming out of the fridge and him coming out of the projector where he's huge and he's in the room, and I was like, okay, like they just made it so crazy that I was like, it took it away from me. But I could totally understand why it's still like a good movie. It's still scary. Like it's still a good movie. I think it's good. I just wasn't scared of it very much.
Nikki, how dare you have opinions?
I know.
Based in your lived
I'm saying
experience.
it like someone is gonna absolutely like. Well, someone might. Maybe this is someone's favorite movie, and they're like, oh, "Fuck this girl." And you know what? Understandable. I'm not an expert. I'm probably wrong, but
no, you're saying your opinion, which is based on your experience and your appreciation of certain types of movies, and you're not saying if you like this, you're wrong and dumb. Like, no, you're
Thanks,
saying,
Kate.
hey, my personal opinion is this.
Kate makes me feel better. Yeah, so like if people like it, I totally get why. And I don't dislike it. I just wasn't scared of it. There were a few parts that got me, but yeah, it's not one of those movies that I think about it later and I'm like, ooh, scary. I mostly think back about the funny parts. I will never forget gazebos. We have to bring it up because when that part happened, I like had to pause and I was laughing so hard. Where he's got the medicine and he's like, do you know what these are? They're gazebos! And I know he means placebos.
Oh my god. I love that so much. That's one of the tropes where he's the malaprop guy.
He totally... Oh my god. Oh, we gotta get to tropes. Yeah, we gotta get to tropes because I've been talking about how I don't love this movie for way too long.
Before we get into tropes, can I share my qualms?
Yes, please. I'm sorry. Okay. I didn't mean to talk over your qualms.
How dare you? No, you did not talk over my qualms. My qualms were waiting.
Okay. They were just patiently waiting.
Yeah. So, my two biggest ones are misogyny and racism.
Oh,
go figure. Just really minor topics, you know, not like big society-wide issues. Okay, yes. So I'll start with the one that I have fewer notes on. So in the 1990 adaptation, it was Mike that was the history buff, and that's as it is in the novel. But
Right.
like he's the one that knew the history of dairy, and he presented on it in the classroom. He's the one with the
You're
photo book that
right.
clues the losers in on Pennywise's history. Instead, this adaptation gave this all to Ben.
Yeah,
So Mike
I totally forgot they did.
basically a background figure that is solely used to demonstrate that Henry Bowers and his friends are bad, and one of the reasons they're bad is because they're racist. And
Yeah.
he just becomes a token character.
Wait, you're so right. And I totally forgot that he's the history buff in the very first one. Because, spoiler alert, I watched the second one just because I haven't ever seen it. And I was like, I know we're not going to cover that one, but I did want to see what it was all about. Which, another spoiler alert, I didn't really like it. Mike, it's like they gave more to Mike in that one. Mm-hmm. Almost because they were like, oops. It almost felt like a consolation prize where they're like, we're going to give Mike a little more character in this one. And it was like, okay, but you took it all the way in the first one. So
yeah.
It almost gave no justification for it. It was just weird.
My broader feeling of this goes back to like how Stephen King wrote that character, because I think he's a really cool character, but it's also like, why is this one man responsible for like, 6 other adults? Like all the burden is placed on him.
All of it.
To organize people and like herd cats. And I was like, this just feels unfair. And then that gets into some like what's it called? Archetypes that are really problematic. But the other thing that I want to talk about is misogyny.
Right.
There's some really good articles on this. Another one by Asia Romano that I really liked. But to quote my friend Maggie, Bev gets the fuzzy end of the lollipop in this adaptation in a lot of ways. So
poor Bev.
One of the changes from 1990 to here was the average age of the characters. So I think they're all around like 10 or 11 in the first one, and here they're all like preteens or teens. They're not children.
Right. Like 13, 14 kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that also introduces topics like puberty, sexuality, and menstruation.
Right.
And in the original, Bev is bullied because she's poor and her father's a janitor. In this version, Greta and her group call her a slut and dump literal garbage water on her. And why does Bev have to make it clear that she's not sexually active? She would be just as valuable, even if she had kissed a bunch of dudes or more. But they make it a point in the film to have her tell Bill, I didn't do that. And he's like, none of us ever believed it. Don't worry. How about instead it's like, what you've autonomously chosen to do with your body and sexuality doesn't have any bearing on how we perceive
Exactly.
your value.
Yeah. It was like, when she feels the need to like confess that it's not something she did, and they're all like, don't worry, we never believed it. So what if she did? So what if she did?
And they also routinely make her a very visible object of the male gaze.
Oh, yeah.
She's never the subject. She's the object. Like when she's in her underwear at the quarry and they're all ogling her.
That part weirded me out because she is like humor. 13 and I know it's for humor. But they sexualized her.
Yeah, it reinforces problematic gender norms. Like, oh, boys can't control it, and it's like cute for boys to be creepy in this way. Like, it's reinforcing a lot of problematic shit.
Right, and also it was just creepy because they sexualized like a 13-year-old.
Yeah. And all of this is in the changed context of Bev potentially being sexually abused by her father. Because in the book and the 1990 adaptation, it was physical abuse and not intended to be shown as sexual abuse.
Okay, yeah.
But there are strong hints in this adaptation that he molested her. So while they remove the sweet orgy scene, they basically position Bev as a damsel, an object of sexual desire this entire film.
They give her like very few moments of being like she throws the rock, and they're all like, oh wow, she threw that rock, and it's like, okay. Like it felt like they were trying to make up for these things that they did that they probably knew were kind of shitty and just didn't make up for it.
No. And like one of the tropes was like action girl, and it's like kind of a way to be like, I know that she's the only female character here, but we're gonna make up for it by like having her be a badass with a slingshot. I'm like, that doesn't fix how you sexualize her.
Oh, constantly. I was so uncomfortable when they're buying the stuff from the store and not buying, but like stealing, and the way to distract him was to just like basically get like sexual attention from this like 50-year-old man.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, gross. Like, it was very unnecessary. And then it just, you hear so many adults make the comments too, where she's like, don't go near my kid, Beverly Marsh. Like, I know your type. I don't need your dirty hands on him and stuff like that. And it was like, it felt so unnecessary. It was just like, why would an adult know about that? Like, why?
Yeah. So I was not a fan of the treatment of Beverly. Like,
No.
Sophia Lillis is incredible.
Oh, she's great.
And she acted the shit out of it. Like,
All
I
the
thought
kids
she was
did,
awesome.
I thought, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I have nothing but love and respect for this cast.
Yeah, totally. The whole cast. Great.
But I feel like her character was really done a disservice.
Yeah.
So
It wasn't their fault. It was just, you
No.
know, the choices that were made in the writing and the directing was kind of like, oh, interesting choice. And yeah.
But now I have some fun tropes.
Yes, I'm so
If
excited.
you're ready.
Tropes. So ready.
Okay. So this first one doesn't have a ton of background or like cultural analysis. It's just called Absurdly Spacious Sewer. Where it's set up the sewer system is shown as
that's
like
true.
traversable by multiple teens. Like
Standing
without crouching.
upright.
Yeah. And it's like usually they're like a few inches to maybe a few feet because it's wastewater. And, like, you don't wander through them and, like, carry a bolt gun and, like, have, like, a dangling rope that you can spaciously fall down. Like,
These
it's just not...
Oh my god, this one's blowing my mind because it's so true and it's so... It's in so many movies.
Yep.
Where it's like, yeah, wait, hold on. I've never even stopped to think.
It was, like, the first one on the list that I was like, wait, what? And then I had to think about it.
So funny. What a spacious sewer.
And then the next one is Adults Are Useless.
Oh my god,
and that's, you know, because especially in this version, when Georgie dies, you see the little old woman with the cat. And that cat is very cute, by the way. Cat cares.
Love that cat. Sad that I have to see it.
I know. You did not need to witness this, pure feline.
You didn't need to.
But she sees Georgie with his, like, face in a sewer, and she's like, checks out. This is normal child behavior. Then she looks back. He's not there, but she sees blood in the street, and she's like, weird. Takes her cat inside.
I remember this woman just being like, yeah, that kid's got his whole head in that sewer. That's weird. And doesn't do anything. If I saw a kid with his whole head in the sewer, I'd be like, kid, stop. Don't do that.
Child, no.
Child, please, no. But yeah, they were, I had this in my notes too, where I was like, the adults were much more useless in this one and exaggeratedly, like, useless to the point where I was like, oh, this is very intentional. Yeah, okay.
Yep. And then there's the Batman Gambit. And I had to Google this one because I was like, I don't know what that means. I'm not a comic book person.
I don't know.
I'm not a superhero person. I do like graphic novels, but, like, I'm not a superhero person.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know what that means. And so I looked it up. And it's basically a plan where people do exactly what you'd expect them to do. So, like, the villain does a villainous thing, and the plan of the hero plays in or, like, is in line with their flaws. And so their flaw could also be, like, a virtue, where it's like the hero that rushes in to save a loved one without considering their own safety. So in this case, the Batman Gambit is that Pennywise takes Beverly hostage, knowing that the rest of the losers will follow. Because
and
she's
they
a
did.
loser too. Yeah. And then I love this one. But now I must go. It's a hurried exit at the end, often used for sentimentality. So in this case, it's a way to get Bev out of Derry to set it up for the next part, but also to leave that love triangle unfulfilled and spicy.
Right.
I hate the love triangle.
I hate the love triangle.
We're coming back to subversion, though. Okay.
Oh, so boy.
The censored child death is double subverted. So this is a quote from TV Tropes. When it was about to kill Georgie, instead of an off-screen death, we see him ripping his arm off, and Georgie trying to escape. Then it reaches out to get him. This time his death is off-screen.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's so true.
And we have Chekhov's gun. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that was just... that scene is so... Ugh.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. We have Chekhov's gun, something that seems minor that comes back to be a bigger deal, like the bolt gun or the switchblade.
Right.
And then this is the one I mentioned earlier, clap your hands if you believe. It's called the Tinkerbell effect. And it's basically like, this is battery acid, and he, like, sprays his inhaler. It's like, if you believe it, it becomes true.
Right.
And there's also a version of this trope where it's like the actor tries to get the audience to engage in a physical way in order to make something more effective. So it's like, tell Tinkerbell you believe in her, or Dora the Explorer, clap your hands. And then we have the damsel in distress, with a bait and switch version. So it's when, like, the damsel in distress trope is pretty clear, but it's when a female character is put in harm's way, and that's used as a plot device to push the other main characters back together.
Yeah.
Because what is a woman but a tool to manage men's emotions? And I know that I'm speaking in the binary, and, like, gender is expansive, and it's not just two genders, but this is the way this trope is set up.
Right, yeah.
And then I love this, darker and edgier. It's just what this is.
Oh my god.
Darkest hour. That moment where everything is the worst it can be and things fall apart. So in this case, it's when the loses fracture after the Neville house.
Yep.
I love this one because we talked about it last time. Daylight horror. This is the opposite of evil is not well lit. Because in a lot of movies, there's the trope of like something evil's happening and it's in a darkened lair, you know?
Whereas this, it was like, so bright.
Yep. There's everyone has standards. And it's like when Henry Bowers is like, I gave you a pass because your brother died, but like, I'm done. Where it's like, I'll be this bad, but not this bad. I won't cross this line.
I remember that line, and I was just like, okay, so you're not willing to stab a kid if his brother died, but as soon as that grieving period is up, you're ready to murder. Cool. Yep. Good to know.
And one of the characters is like, yeah, I'm okay with, like, carving our initials into this child's stomach, but, like, you wanted to shoot a cat, we're done. Yeah. So it's like, everybody has standards. These are the lines they want to cross.
Hey, listen, I'll stab a kid, but shooting a cat, that's too far. You know what? Honestly, I agree. Not that I'll stab a kid. I just...
You heard it here first.
No!
Just school that does not condone harm to children or animals or other humans.
I would never stab anyone. I just mean, like, yeah, like shooting a cat, that's horrible.
Yeah, it is.
Someone stabbing a kid, I don't know. I'm digging a hole right now. I'm making it sound like I'm totally cool with stabbing.
It's like one of those...
Both are bad.
Okay, so you know when you mix metaphors where it's like, we'll burn that bridge when you come to it. I always think of the... Like, if you're going through hell, like, if you're walking through hell, keep walking, and then, like, you're digging yourself into a deeper hole, and it's like, if you're digging into hell, keep digging.
I'm gonna stop digging.
So, the next one I love is the fourth wall will not protect you. So, the fourth wall, for, like, anyone that's not familiar, is basically the barrier between what's happening on screen or on stage and the audience. It's saying that this is our willing suspension of disbelief, and I will believe the things happen within those three walls, and the fourth wall is what separates you. Mm-hmm. But in this, there are a couple different examples operating on different levels. So there's a fourth wall broken with the characters, where Pennywise comes out of the projector, because that's supposed to be walled off. Like, he is in a separate reality, which is a picture, but then he becomes part of their reality. And then he also does this with the audience. So I didn't notice it the first time I watched it. It just felt off, but I couldn't tell why. It's because Skarsgård's eyes are looking different directions.
Yes!
Yeah,
yes, his
he
eyes
can
are
do
like,
that.
Oh my god, like, what a weird, attractive man.
I know. And so one of his eyes is often staring at the camera, meaning the audience, while the other eye is on the children he's torturing. And so it's this, like, the fourth wall will not protect you. Pennywise sees you too.
Ew.
Yeah.
I mean, you said that instantly. I was like, Bill Skarsgård can see me? Alright. I need to stop with those clowns. I can't. That's so interesting. I didn't notice that.
Yeah. I learned so much from TV tropes. I love it.
I love it. That's so cool.
And then, just as a funny thing, there's the funny background event. So, in one scene, when they're, like, in an alley, and Eddie's, like, trying to do something serious, you see Richie in the background fighting with a band person over musical instruments. It's just so
there were... Oh my god. Like, listen, honestly, if you don't like scary movies, I recommend finding somehow to watch all the parts of this that are just funny. Because all of it is genuinely really funny. I'll never forget the gazebo line. Absolutely top notch.
No, these are like, they're gazebos.
There's so many good moments, specifically with Eddie. Eddie cracks me up. Like, I know Richie's the funny one, but Eddie stole the show. But that's so funny. It's just him in the background.
We also have a hard work montage, which is when they're cleaning up the bathroom. I'm not afraid of you, which is that moment where Beverly's like, Pennywise, I'm not afraid of you. And he's like, but you will. She's like, nah, man, I already faced my worst fear, which was my father.
Thanks.
Bye. I love this one. The important haircut. So after Bev gets... her father, like, has this weird fixation with her hair, and he, like, touches it, and she's like, fuck this, fuck that, and she cuts her hair off. and it's like this changing moment, and it can be read in so many ways, like I'm leaving childhood behind, I'm a woman now, but also like I'm cutting off the thing that my father touched, and also like I'm taking like my own freedom in this moment. So there are a lot of things, but it's an important haircut.
Yeah, very important haircut. Honestly, great haircut. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I took a picture of the haircut when I was like, when this first came out, and I literally got this haircut.
Nice.
It was on my little thing.
I love it. So when Stanley Uris first came in, I was like, I want his hair. Like his curly hair. I want it. And it's just like, then I remembered, I definitely forgot this on purpose. I had a perm in high school. I had a pixie cut that was growing out. And so I got a perm. And it lasted about a year. And I had curly short hair.
Kate, if I don't see a photo of that in the next, 2 hours, I'm gonna scream.
I'll send it to you.
Oh my god!
I know. I keep forgetting. I'm like, I did that?
Oh my god. Listen, we've all had, questionable haircuts.
Made choices.
I remember cutting off just half my hair once in college, where I had just, short hair over here and, a nice little long. It didn't look good on me. I see photos of it and I'm like, oh boy. Because I have very curly hair, so it was not the look.
Amazing. If I don't see pictures of that in the next 2 hours, I will scream.
I'll send it. God damn it.
There's also the trope of nice job fixing it villain, which is where the villain does something that's supposed to be reprehensible, but it actually helps them solve the problem, or it helps them come together. So when Pennywise targets Beverly as her father, all the losers are like, okay, now you fucked up. So it bonds them again.
Right, yeah.
Then we obviously have the power of friendship and the pre-ass-kicking one-liner.
Of course.
We also, the last two that I have are the security cling. And so it's when something scary happens, they grab each other's arms.
It's true.
And then the final one is the Smurfette principle, where there is one woman among a party of men.
The Smurfette principle. It's
Thanks
true.
to good TV tropes.
Oh my god, that's funny. That's so funny. Because that's so true. She's literally just the only other, girl you really get is that really mean one in the pharmacy. Yeah. Which is also shitty, because it's we only get, a damsel in distress and a sexualized character and a bully.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. Yeah, those are some good tropes. Those are good ones.
So, we already talked about this, but my idea for the scale for this one was on gazebos.
Oh, absolutely. How many gazebos do you give this? I am on board.
Oh my god, okay.
If we're rating it on just the gazebo line, 10 out of 5.
Oh yeah. Chef's kiss, 10 out of 5 gazebos just for the gazebo line.
Just for the gazebo line.
For the humor, I would give this 5 out of 5 gazebos.
You know what? For the humor, because these kids were so good, 5 out of 5 gazebos. But if I was gonna say, just based on, if I was watching this as just a horror movie and I wanted to be scared, this would be, 3 gazebos. And it has nothing to do with anyone's performance, because it was very good. Just costuming and effects and certain directing choices really took it out for me. I was eh.
In terms of my values and my want to see feminist storylines, I give this a 2 gazebo.
Oh god, I'm giving it a 1 gazebo. Yeah.
But in terms of enjoyable watching, I give it 4 gazebos, because I've seen it 3 times and I enjoyed watching it each time.
As much as I've shit talked it, I've seen it 3 times.
Yeah, and they definitely play into the campiness factor, and I feel part of that is nostalgia, but part of it's also these are children and these are children's fears, and so they can be larger than life fears that are existential dread, but it's also he's really afraid of sickness, so the leper is going to be really extra. Yeah. So I don't know. I definitely have my issues with this movie, as we talked about. But yeah, I'd give it in the range of total 3.5 to 4 gazebos.
Yeah. That's a good rating, yeah. I can totally see, why people dig it, because it is good. It wasn't scary to me, but that's just because, I'm a brat when it comes to fucking effects. I was more practical effects, less CGI.
It was scary to
nothing about it.
It was scary to me the first time because I am a jumpy person, but upon watching it the second time and the third time, it's not scary anymore. It's just unsettling in a lot of ways.
I will say the first time I saw it, it was scary. Like, there were parts that I was genuinely like, oh, that was a scary movie. And then the more I've watched, I'm like, that movie's really funny. Like,
yeah.
And the effects just take it out for me where I'm like, it's too wild.
Yeah.
But I get it. Yeah. It's good. I'll never forget that creepy burned egg child. So they got me there.
I'm sensing a trend with the creepiest thing
Yeah.
that you identify in each movie as a small child. A small boy child.
It did not take long for you to catch on that I do not enjoy children in scary movies. That boy in his tank top. I hated that. What was it in it? The original? Was there a little
bully
kid
being sucked into the pipe?
Hated that. Yep,
Yeah.
all right. Yeah, kids creep me out, okay? They creep me out. Even, like, little kids laughing genuinely, like when they're having a great time, creeps me out.
When I was a kid,
like
my
it.
grandma told me that I had to change my laugh because it sounded evil. And I mentioned it to my mom, and she was like, yeah, your laugh did sound evil. It was creepy. I was like, oh no.
Oh my god. Kate, if I ever met you as a child, I'd probably be like, I'd give you a little punch. Just one little one. I'd
Just
be
a little
so scared
punch.
of you. Just a little punch. Just so
Put you in
frightened.
place.
Like I said, I don't condone any kind of stabbing. I'm just saying, kids can sometimes be very scary. If that egg child came at me, my instinct may have been to hit it instead of run. I'd have been like, we're hitting this little egg kid. His headless body, I would have punched him right in the chest. Get out of here.
Oh, man. So with that wraps up our discussion of It Chapter 1. If you enjoyed your time with us, we would greatly appreciate it if you'd like and review on Apple Podcasts. Perhaps follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Just Cool With It. Check out our extended show notes on our website, justcoolwithitpod.com, or maybe even check out our Patreon at patreon.com/justcoolwithit. We'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Kim, Kelly, and Nihar. They are our incredible patrons, and we feel so lucky to have them on this journey with us.
Yes.
And our intro and outro music, it was new last episode, but we had already recorded by the time we put it in. So
True.
Here is our shout out and our huge thanks to Anthony Roccazella. He's at Puff the Magic Bassist on Instagram, and the cover art is by our very own Nikki.
It's true. One, two, three. What are you waiting for? I can't tell if I'm lagging or you just can't see me.
You're lagging for me so much, because every time I do it, you're clapping after me.
Every time I do it, you're clapping after me. I was like, why is she doing this?
I'm like waiting for you to move.
I'm waiting for you, and I'm like, come on, clap. All right, well, good stuff.
We tried.
I'm gonna put that at the beginning. Fuck it.